what are the key things that you look for in a resume? What should a good resume have? And how is it different when applying for a startup versus applying for a large organization?
That's a really good question. I think the fundamental thing that I look for in a resume, CJ, is curiosity embodied in all the decisions that they've made. So not sticking to a straight line, but actually experimenting on the sides with maybe new gigs, maybe NGO, maybe just public speaking, dramatics, whatever is it that got their fancy, so that I see a well-rounded personality. Startups, I believe, value that a lot because they're always looking for individuals who can take on a lot. But when you're applying for a corporate job, then the approach has to be slightly different, where you bring in a level of excellence and specialization visible from the resume. That, in my opinion, would be a big difference between the two.
Super, thanks. I think that's very insightful. I think I'm a little biased towards the startup piece that you said, because when I look at a resume, I worked as a recruiter for a short time when I was still getting on my feet trying to do stand-up.
Nice.
One of the things I've always looked for is sport, because if somebody's played sport,
Teaches them a lot.
it brings so many different values into it,
So true.
including playing on a team.
Absolutely. So true.
All right, question number 2. You speak to a lot of young people at the beginnings of their career. In your experience, what are their greatest fears and insecurities, and how would you advise they deal with it or get over it?
You know what? I can say so much, but the one thing that fundamentally stands out, CJ, whenever I speak to 18 to 24-year-olds particularly, is how they're constantly comparing themselves to everyone else. It is unbelievable, it's tragic, it's unfortunate, but it's such a mind-sucking feeling that you can't really get out of it on your own. Because your friends are doing well, or you so think they are, your parents are constantly comparing you to Sharma ji ka beta, and everything is just happening as per there. My only suggestion is, please recognize you're still early in the trade. There is a wonderful life ahead of you. At the age of 21, 22, as much as you feel old and you feel that, oh my God, my life's decisions are not complete and I'm over, it's just the start of a wonderful trajectory that you have to own, and don't put yourself any pressure of time. That's the only advice I keep giving people. Don't put the pressure of time, क्योंकि दुनिया हमेशा बोलती रहेगी 25 तक ये, 27 तक ये, 29 तक ये. There is no milestone to accomplish. You do it. And I think the two of us are great examples of that, where even so late in life, we're discovering a whole new self of ours. And we're not an aberration. We're actually what should be the rule.
I agree with you completely. I've always said that comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, so true.
And you spoke about being early in learning the trade. One of the pieces of advice I've always given young people is it's very important to learn the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade.
So true.
You know, so often we find people trying to learn the tricks of the trade before they learn the craft.
Exactly.
In itself.
So true. So true. Wonderfully put.
All right, let's move on. How important is it to have a mentor? Should one have more than one mentor? What are the qualities one should look for in a mentor? And how should one go about approaching somebody to mentor them?
Got it. Terrific questions. I love the quality of them. One, it is incredibly important to have a mentor. They just help you navigate and to give you an objective view of what you may be experiencing from an outside-in perspective. Do not have one mentor in your life. It's unfair on that person, because you can't have one person just suddenly taking care of your life and your money and your love and everything around that. I personally have multiple mentors in different dimensions. So I will go to someone for recruitment advice. I'll go to someone for money advice. I'll go to someone for relationship advice, whatever the case is. And the one big mistake that particularly young people make when they're looking for mentors is they look for the ones who are extremely accomplished, but done far away from where they are. So when a 21-year-old reaches out to me and saying, I would love for you to be my mentor, I'm like, that'll be a really bad choice, because there are some things in my mind that are just so natural that I may not do justice to where you are and help you understand that from my perspective. Your best mentor is someone who's at best 5 to 10 years within you. not someone who's 15 to 20, 25 years ahead, because very few people have that maturity to understand how to speak to a language which may not be as obvious to them. And that'll be my only advice. When you reach out, one thing that I've always believed in, cold emails.
Yeah.
The world is a helpful place. It contains really good people. All you have to do is ask. I have benefited from a lot of cold emails that I have sent. I respond to a lot of cold emails that I get, and I'm always surprised at how many people do not tap into it when it's just open for everyone to.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because at Seekho X we've got over 350 mentors.
Absolutely.
And they fit almost exactly that profile. They are either currently doing what young people aspire to do, or they've finished doing that or achieved that in the last 5 to 10 years.
And that was fascinating. Like when I was speaking with Divya as well, she shared the fact that people relate to individuals who are within 2 to 5 years of their own experience, which is such a smart way of looking at that. So I'm so glad that Seekho is looking at it from a very different lens that most other mentorship platforms would.
Yeah. In fact, what are your thoughts on the Seekho platform? I mean, it's a platform that looks to give young people the skills required to land jobs, to get careers.
It is necessary, because the truth is, in some way, college or the education system in general, I wouldn't say failed us, but failed us, because it didn't really prepare us for the real world. So when you have someone like Seekho coming in and genuinely helping create one curriculum for upskilling, to a fantastic community where you're not just one-to-many conversations, but many-to-many conversations, so you gain from that, and opportunities which come almost served on a platter in sorts, of saying, here is the best that this country and the world has to offer, and you are now equipped to take that on. I genuinely feel that the country and the youth deserve this.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear that, and it is a joy and an honor for us to have you on this platform.
It is absolutely my privilege.
Now, you've said many times, I've read it in your book as well, that you want young India to be financially literate.
Yes.
Can you define what financial literacy means to you, and what are the top 3 things that young people should keep in mind when trying to be financially literate?
Sure. So financial literacy for me, CJ, is all about being aware of how your money can work for you, as against you working for money. So we all know how we can work for money. We all know getting a job will give us money, doing this business will give us money, selling or buying these things and trading will give us money. But what do we do when we get the money? And very few people have the answer to that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the answer then becomes what is clinically served from our parents, which is fixed deposit kara do, us uncle ko de do, or wo kuch ulip kharid lenge or whatnot. I feel all these are very valid choices, and you're always free to make those, but it has to come from a point of awareness. You need to know what all is in front of you, whether it is stock market, whether it is even cryptocurrency, whether it is whatever is it, but you understand what your risk profile is and how you want to play with your money. There are 3 things that I would always speak of, especially when you're young. It's not a factor of how much you're investing, but for how long you're investing, that determines your wealth.
The power of compounding.
The power of compounding. It is truly a magic, and you'll only be able to realize it much later, but you'll have to start today. That's number 1. Number 2, do not try and come across as an expert who's trying to time the market and saying, oh, market niche hai, ye karo, market upar hai, ye karo. Who knows what it is? No one does. The only good way that someone like us, who is a naive individual, but with the awareness, just invest regularly. Puri shiddat ke saath बोलते हैं ना, एक disciplined manner में just keep investing. And number 3, do not invest because of FOMO. It's a trap that everyone in the 20s will fall in. अरे मेरे फ्रेंड ने रातों रात इतने पैसे कमा लिए, यहाँ डाल दो, उनके इतने पैसे कम बन गए, वहाँ डाल दो. That is not how you have to think about it. It has to be something that you understand. I always say no investment is worth losing your sleep on. And if you've made any investment where you're like, oh, पैसे तो नहीं डूब जाएंगे, just don't.
I've always believed in exactly that same power of compounding, but in relationships as well.
That is so true. That is so true.
And you need to regularly invest that time in relationships as well.
Absolutely. Compounding is true for everything in life, and relationships is such a great example of it.
All right. You grew your Instagram following from a few thousand people to over 1 million people in 12 months. Did you have a plan or strategy for how to go about doing it? Do you have one for the future? And if you didn't have a plan, what are the lessons that you have learned from your growth?
This is a terrific question. And the short answer is I didn't have a plan. There was no, well, I shouldn't say that. There was a plan, but the plan was not centered on a goal or a target. The plan was centered on inputs, which is what are we going to do on a daily basis and just see where it takes us.
Habits and consistency.
Habits and consistency, absolutely. So I am such a passionate believer of habits, because when you create a habit, it dispenses the least amount of energy for you to do it. And you will be surprised at how far that habit takes you. So one can say, I want to write a book this year, may fail, may not.
Yeah.
But if you say, I'm going to write every day, you will conclusively have a book whenever that happens. Maybe 6 months, maybe 2 years, but it is bound to. And that's the same thing that we did with Instagram as well. It's clinical, good quality content, putting out day in and day out without looking at those numbers. And thankfully, it worked out. And that's the biggest lesson.
Yeah.
Don't set goals and targets, set habits, and they take you far.
Yeah. So when I work in executive coaching as well, we speak about exactly the same thing, where you talk about process goals as opposed to outcome goals.
Absolutely.
It's not the outcome that you want to achieve, but the discipline on the process.
So true.